Dr. Renee Carr.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. And then also, Rainey, we also want to focus on this. A lot of times when you're talking to media, what you say can result into a crisis. And so, of course, we want to focus on communications with that as well. So the goal for today will be not only what to say proactively to just discuss an issue, but also proactively to prevent a crisis, saying it in the best wording possible. And then if someone on your team, staff, company, if they then make a snafu that becomes a crisis, then how to actually resolve it in the best way possible. So as you mentioned, I'm Renee / Dr. Carr, and the whole goal of today is to give you personal information that you just can't Google off of Google. Now it's become, I don't want to get my nerd. Okay, I'll tell you. So you know how when Xerox became like the adjective or the verb, like Xerox something, they had to actually stop it because it was the Xerox company. So now they say copying. Anyway, it was just a nerd fact. Okay, so the main goal of when you are talking to the media is to remember who you are and what your goal is in that communication, in that conversation, whether it's going to be taped, put on YouTube or something else. The whole goal is to remember that it's a conversation that you are actively engaged in. If you see yourself on the receiving end, like they're giving you a question and you're answering it, then you've lost all of your power in that conversation. You also make yourself vulnerable to them spinning what you said, to getting you off track, off message, and focusing on what their agenda is or could possibly be based off of what you said. So remember, number one, when you talk to the media, the goal is to remember that you are in charge of the conversation, and that although they have microphone and press behind them, you really have the ultimate power, because what you say or do can either make their job or break their job. What you say or do can give them ratings and you ratings. So remember, it's your word of mouth that they're asking for. So see yourself as the expert in whatever it is that you are being questioned about. See yourself as the expert in that. Now, in order to stay true to yourself, when you get into those hot seat questions, you have to know who you are. So I'm going to ask for volunteers, ideally 5, if you can 6, ideally everybody. But we're going to go through these questions, and I really do want just your authentic answers. And it's not Las Vegas, but hopefully whatever we say in here stays in here. Okay? So that way you can get the most value for your time over here. Hi, ladies, if you can just get the pieces of paper from back there and fill them out as honestly as possible. Okay, so can I have one person be our first volunteer? Okay, yay, Mr. I'm not running in.
You're gonna make it.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your greatest fear?
So honestly, that question is one I have blank right now because I'm struggling a little bit with it. But perhaps it's not living to my own standards and the standards that perhaps my family has.
Okay.
I want to make them proud. I want to make myself proud. I want to make my community proud. So perhaps that's my greatest fear.
Okay, all right. What is the best experience you could ever have in life?
Probably, I would say, I have to say 2, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Probably traveling the whole world with someone really special to me. And second, when one day, my career has developed, I can say that I've lived to those standards I was just talking about. That I did those things that I set out to do from the start. So.
Okay, okay. Can you all hear him? Okay. All right.
What's your name, by the way?
Ruben.
Ruben, okay. How do you want to be remembered?
So I want to be remembered as someone that no matter the situation, no matter the adversity, I always talk to my values. My honesty, my integrity is very important to me. So I want people to know that I value those over party, or political capital, over any other interest. So, yeah.
Okay. On a scale of 0, lowest, to 10, highest, turn around. How attractive do you view yourself?
9.
9, okay. Okay, good. Why are you running for office? Or what did you put for? Why did you choose your current career?
So I currently work at a nonprofit doing voting rights. And I do that because for a couple of reasons. First, I don't think my community has the political power in many ways to improve their quality of life. Also, I don't feel represented by this government. I don't think they look like me or think like me or speak like me. So that is something that I believe we have to work in, and I think that a more representative democracy, somewhere where everyone has the right to vote, equal access to vote, is a place that will be a more progressive country where all the other issues I care about will be impacted.
Okay, and then number 6, what made you choose this career versus another?
I think, first of all, I have the experience and the track record. I've worked in voting rights for 5 or 6 years. And second, because all the other issues I care about, healthcare, immigration, education, I think that if people, again, have better and more access to voting rights, and we have a more representative democracy, we can make it a more progressive country where all these other issues are improved in my community.
Okay. Did you all hear any themes in what he was saying? Integrity, values, track record. So, if you did decide to run for office, you have spoken on the record about integrity and value. So if there's anything that ever were to come up, then your reputation is now gone. He had a high level of emphasis on values. Did you hear that? Like repeatedly. So then when you're talking to the media, one of the ways that they could trip you up is, one, if there's anything salacious about your past, but also values is very emotional, which would mean that psychologically, whatever you're doing, you are emotionally tied to that activity, and that's part of your identity. It also sounds like it might be part of your religious or your spiritual background as well. So when you're in front of the camera, then you are more susceptible to responding in an emotional way. If it's a voting issue, because that's what you're focusing on, if it's a voting issue that goes against what your values are. So do you see how the media could already figure out what his weak spots would be? So say, for example, if you're saying that you have focusing on values and integrity, but then we found out that we saw you selling weed, in your dorm, okay? And it was to someone who we later found out was 17, they just had early admission. So now you're selling drugs to minors. And so they're going to attack you as your person, but because you focused on number 2, your answer was going someplace with someone who I really care about, which means that you value personal relationships, especially family. Then you also talked about integrity, then you are more likely to kind of get like flustered or flush and get off topic and focus on defending yourself as a person versus as a candidate. So do you see how that is possible? So what you have to do with these questions I'll be asking when we're coming up here is you have to recognize that who you are as a person is what's going to be on the spotlight. And whatever you have already said on the record or what you are currently campaigning for, then you going against that somehow is going to then get you off of your professional focus and into a whole different personal, emotional realm that will make you then more vulnerable. And then they'll just tear you apart. Okay? So now to practice that, you can go over here.
Oh, okay.
This is a very in-depth activity. So now you're at the press conference, and here's a reporter.
All right, I'm gonna apologize in advance because I'm about to
yes, and these are very real, hardcore questions. So this is not for the faint.
I'm gonna basically try to be.
But he's a really nice person inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So you've said you've traveled the world. I assume that means you've gone to Russia.
I actually did not say I traveled the world. I said that it was one of the best experiences I could ever have with a loved one. So, yeah, definitely.
So then you've lied about your record of traveling.
Oh, no, I don't think I did not lie. I was just saying again that I think one of the best experiences that I could have in life is traveling with someone, a loved one, throughout the world.
So you're saying you're inexperienced. How do you think you can serve the voters without any experience?
I don't think that makes me inexperienced. Like I said, I have a track record of working in voting rights for 5 or 6 years. So,
why do you think people shouldn't have to show a driver's license to vote? If you want to buy alcohol, you have to vote. If you want to buy a gun, you have to show a driver's license. If you want to buy alcohol, you have to show a driver's license. Why shouldn't the same thing apply to voting, our most sacred right?
So, when you look at the people that are more disproportionately barred from voting because of not having an ID or a driver's license are people of color. And it seems that many times it's a very targeted effort. So why in a democracy we shouldn't make it as easiest to vote? And many times to get a driver's license, you need to pay money, you need to drive far away, there's not a DMV close by, you need to take time off work, many other reasons. So it can essentially be a poll tax, and we don't do that these days. So
okay, good job. How do you think he did? So those are really hard questions. Now, what we would notice, did anyone see how you were very composed up here, but down here you were doing that a lot. So that's
also I agree with everything you were saying.
Yeah.
I was just trying to rattle you.
Yeah. So you did a good job. But how did you feel?
Like the first couple ones about Russia and stuff, that like, wait, what? I felt myself like getting a little like mad, actually, just a little bit.
Yeah. Could you all see that? Are you from New York or someplace?
No.
Oh,
no.
okay. Are you Latino?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. You had some fire under there that was brewing.
Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So you had something going on that I was like,
but I recognized it at least.
Yeah.
So I was able to pause and control myself the rest of it.
Okay, and that's good.
Yeah, I was trying to like start out with a question that was like out of left field just to throw it.
And when you're talking with the media, they're going to ask you questions about the Easter Bunny. You're like, wait a minute, I'm talking about foreign policy. Where did this come from? So again, your goal is to just focus on what you're talking about. So I'm going to finish with this part. Then Renee will come go ahead and say what your feedback would be.
I actually think this is a fantastic exercise that sometimes people don't even get access to until you're down the road, then all of a sudden you say something and you step in it and then you're cleaning it up, and that's the crisis part that we'll talk about in a little bit. But so this is a really fantastic exercise, and Drew, who is a lovely, lovely person, but is playing this role, and it's not uncommon. You will be talking about healthcare and they want to talk about Mars or whatever. So
can I interject something too? Especially when you're dealing with local reporters, like they don't necessarily have as good a grasp on all the issues. So, but it's easy to like Google something about you and be like, oh, I'll ask them about this. And like, it might not be something that you even like remember doing, but it's like on your Instagram or whatever.
One big important note with the press, and I probably will say this a few times, but I think this is really important. Just because they say something to you, it absolutely does not mean you should repeat it back to them. So at one point, Drew said, oh, so you're lying. And then you repeated back to him, I didn't lie, which immediately, regardless of your body language or anything else, immediately communicates defensiveness.
Like Nixon.
I'm not a crook. Right, exactly. So, and this is true with those kind of like, a statement like, I didn't lie. You don't have to say that. Actually, back, what I said was, or if you look back at at the questionnaire, the survey, the interview, the whatever it was, what I actually said, and you may have missed, which is a really polite way of saying, you're not paying attention, dumbass. Not you, obviously. But it is true. It is my favorite phrase of all times. As I mentioned previously, or as you may have missed, because I'm not calling you a dumbass, but I am saying, you missed something, not me. So that is one really important thing. And whether it is repeating a phrase back to them, so the I didn't lie part, or it's the way that they frame a question. So, for example, this is actually perfect. I kind of forgot until just now. Drew mentioned the question about voter ID laws. So the way he asked it was very like, why wouldn't you? Because you have to buy booze and blah, 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 whatever. So you don't need to answer that. You don't have to answer the question in their framing, in their framework. Whatever, if y'all were here yesterday, I said authenticity, I think matters, and I think is going to be not just the word, but sort of the feeling of 2018. So what is authentic to you or to any of you? I find myself like my own blood boiling sometimes when people say things like that. And who's heard those kinds of remarks before? I mean, in like real life, not in this happy little exercise. So I myself have been doing this work for a really long time, and I still like, oh my God, you were so awful. Which of course is not. Do what?
I was just gonna say, like, this is actually. So when my dad was running, I was kind of helping with the press, and my dad's Andy, put the thing on. But I noticed that a lot of the time, both in debates and in the media, they would ask questions about healthcare with, what are we going to do about Obamacare? And there's like 2 landmines in that question already. Because it kind of supposes that like Obamacare is automatically bad, and also it puts this negative association with Obama because, we were running in a Republican district. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a really great example. Like, people bringing up issues in a negative way, and you pivoting away from the negativity into the positive framework. So whether it's voter ID laws, or I remember I was at a press conference with Bernie in Iowa, and it was just a quick gaggle, and there was a French reporter there who basically said to him, are you crazy? Medicare for all in this country will never happen. Like, how can you even talk about it? And without missing a beat, totally unprepared, we didn't know the French guy was coming, Bernie said, let me ask you something. Did you go to school? Did you go to university? And the guy said, yeah, I did. And he said, how much did you pay? And he said, nothing. He said, let me ask you another question. Have you gotten sick recently? And the guy said, yeah, actually, I had to go to the hospital because I had pneumonia. And he said, well, what did you pay? And he said, well, I didn't pay anything. And Bernie, without having to address every specific and getting into the weeds and going into like a dissertation about how this whole thing is going to work, said, okay, I think the American people would like that. And then moved on. And it was very powerful, and it got all kinds of play on every American outlet. Yeah, because he pivoted away from sort of this like negativity around whatever issue you really are passionate about and want to talk about it, and framed it in the light that he wanted to. So I'm going to grab my notebook real quick, but if you want to call another.
Okay, all right. Who's the second person? Okay. All right.
Not a candidate, but I'll try to make it work.
I know. Ears. All right, so these are inside jokes from our earlier session at 8 o'clock. That's why.
She was calling on me.
Yeah.
Nickname.
What is your greatest fear?
Death without fulfillment in life.
Okay. What is the best experience you could ever have?
This may be a little hokey, but enlightenment in the Buddhist sense of entering nirvana.
Okay.
Vanquishing suffering for all eternity.
Okay. Personally or in the world?
It would just be personally. If I was enlightened, I would become a Buddha, and that's like the ultimate goal of Buddhism.
Okay. How do you want to be remembered?
Funny.
Okay. You're a little bit funny. Okay. On a scale of 0, lowest, to 10, highest, how attractive do you view yourself?
7.
Okay. Why are you running for office? Or
my candidate is running for office because our nation is in a true state of peril, and I truly believe in that candidate and his ability to make a genuine change.
So what made you choose this particular career?
I'm very passionate about media and communications.
Okay. And what made you choose this career, media and communications, versus another?
I enjoy doing this work as opposed to my traditional line of work, which is a contractor in the IT field.
Okay. What do you think would make him vulnerable to media based off of what he said?
Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Anything else? Nirvana, enlightenment for myself.
Right. Me,
Okay.
I statement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that would be trickier for you is that so 1 to 7 is good, so you're not rating yourself too attractive, nor is it too low, so wouldn't have to worry about you being nervous about how you look on camera. So then that means you'd be okay with your ears. But then by you saying like Buddhism or being a Buddhist and then Nirvana, I might think that you might smoke LSD or at some place you're doing something to, to achieve this type of Nirvana experience. Now, because you're focusing on enlightenment and having all the information as possible, or I guess having the highest level of self-actualization, I would think that you are an extrovert and that you are very open to experience, which might mean that you might have a few skeletons in your closet that could come out. And so either the campaign that you're working on, it may do damage, or if you decide to run or be in public office, and that may be something that would trip you up. So one of your goals would be, if you are talking to the media, to be proactive, never put out information in writing or that's recorded that could say anything about you being a perfect kind of person, because they could always go back and show that you're not. And so one of the goals with the messaging and when talking to the media is be authentic by knowing what is the truth. And even though you may think that no one else in the room will tell, you never know nowadays who has a recorder or who will go and say something different. Okay, so one, only saying the truth. So not omitting, but just not addressing it if it doesn't need to be said, if it'll be more damaging than good. Also, you probably would need to focus on information when you're talking to the media that's going to go against the visual perception of who they may think you are. Like, we could see you like smoking like hookah like after this press conference is over. So you might need to add in like some facts or some knowledge to take away, so empirical data to take away the image of you being so enlightened
Esoteric.
and so esoteric that you don't have the numbers. All right, so now your turn for the press conference.
Hot seat.
Yes.
Genuinely
All right, now
shook going into this, by the way.
The reporter is here.
All right. So you have a background in technology.
Yes, I've owned and operated an IT contracting company for the past 10 years in upstate New York.
What companies have you worked for?
Several. I've worked for several companies throughout my professional life.
According to your tax filings, you had a large contract with Amazon.com. What do you say to the workers of the world who are losing their jobs because of Amazon's price gouging and drone deliveries?
We need to do better as a government.
How can you do better if you're part of the problem? Seems like you're serving some special interests.
I do not serve special interests. I shouldn't have repeated that. This is why we do this, though, right? My involvement with Amazon was for a deal that did good in communities before Amazon took a major turn toward.
Can you point towards specific benefits to the community that you live in from this deal?
No, I cannot. He looked at that like, I got him.
All right, so now what you got? Do you see how quickly that went left? Is anyone surprised about how the reporter got the information? Like, where did that, we didn't talk about Amazon, so obviously they're going to do something to get a soundbite for you. Now, I'll do the body language, then you can go into your part.
Yeah.
So from here up, which is what the podiums are for, to help cover the body, but anyone on the side camera, they can see that he was going like this a lot. Did you all see that? So he was doing this a lot, and then he went like this. When you're going down like this, when you're looking at body language, this is like basically an OSHIT moment.
When you did it, I thought
yes.
the words.
And so that'll be the meme that's going to go out right after the session is over. So when you do that, so remember, also this is also more like I'm asking for forgiveness. It's almost kind of like you're going to go like that. So just kind of remember to just stay in control of your body.
What are good upper body language positions for the podium while you're there?
The main thing is, so one, for ladies, this is good to make your thighs look smaller. So if you go like that, but you don't want to do that because you're not female. But what you could do is you can find whatever's going to keep you feeling balanced. So usually that would be like going like this, and then you can always go like this when you're gesticulating. And that seems natural, but if your legs are too close together, if you're nervous and if you're hot, your knees are going to lock and then you're going to pass out. So something more like this, where they really can't see your hands, and then if your fingers are inside the podium, maybe like squeeze that if you're nervous. Okay, as an inside tip, I tell women to just do Kegels if you're nervous, because no one can see that. But it helps you hold in the tension, but still breathe normally, not holding in your stomach.
So, I mean, you knew, like when you were sort of caught, and you weren't even, I wouldn't even say that you were caught in anything, but this is what happens. This is what the press does to us. And let me tell you, sometimes it's based in ignorance, and sometimes it's based because sexy sells and they're trying to sell papers or get people to tune in or whatever. So these like gotcha things that's what they're after. I mean, I may or may not have gone after Paul Ryan because he was keeping, my husband works on the Hill, so just full disclosure. he was, Paul Ryan kept Congress in session. They were supposed to be in recess the 14th, stayed till the 22nd so they could screw over poor people. I was like, great family values, buddy. So I may or may not have tweeted that. And I immediately got calls from reporters, several who were like, oh my gosh. And I was very honest with them. I said, listen, my husband works on the Hill. This is our family time is completely shot out of the water now. And he's one of hundreds. So this is it's not just him, it's the members, it's their staffs, etc. One reporter asked me if I was sorry. And I was like, for what? No, I'm not sorry. I'd do it again. I'd say it to his face. I'll sing it up from the rooftop. So I'm not saying everybody should have attitude all the time. But what I am saying is that is what they're at. They're after that moment where they can say, oh, she did this or he did this and now they're sorry. And then create this like drama around it. I don't know what the whole experience is. I have no idea. But at the end of the day, when you were doing the work you were doing, there were jobs in that community. And you started going down that road where you were like, at the time, whatever. And that's great. But I wouldn't even get into the weeds on that so much. I would say, things have obviously changed with Amazon. When I was there, they were really focused on the community and enriching the community. There were jobs. It's unfortunate this is happening now. We have to do better. In and out, move on.
And then don't forget to add the numbers. To offset
The empirical.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I have a quick question. So on that, I was thinking, I wonder if he just could have pivoted, because like Amazon is doing some other good stuff. So could he have just said, well, actually, they are having a good moment now because they are getting ready to open up centers in other cities. They're looking at crowdsourcing, which is like Uberizing Amazon. It's going to bring billions of dollars. But would that have seemed defensive, or would it have seemed?
I was giving the numbers.
I would say sticking to. But the fact is, how many people did Amazon just lay off? It's a pretty big number.
They did, but they also are doing. Because remember, Jeff Bezos was on Capitol Hill all the time. So I told you all earlier, I was on Capitol Hill. So he's up there all the time talking about all of the programs he's going to bring.
Oh yeah, I'm not.
Could you have done that? Because I bet the reporter wouldn't have known those facts, and it would have been a good pivot point with numbers to say, here are the millions of dollars he's trying to put back in for that.
I would say if you are intimately, and tell me what you share, of course. If you're intimately aware with those kind of facts and figures, I would say sure. But at the end of the day, his job is not to defend Amazon.
Okay.
And
I would say I was part of it. Let me just say it too. I would say I'm part of that. Because he said he was a consultant. So I'd have surely sold myself. I wouldn't have made him look good. I'd have made, the purpose of that would have been making me look
Yeah. That's where I say if it's something you're intimately aware of and can talk about with knowledge, and it's not like you're, I think, and maybe, and didn't they say, I would say, yeah, but only as far as it serves your purposes. And that sounds very selfish, but at the end of the day, you are selling yourself or your person, your candidate, not another entity.
And also, when it's your brand, and remember, don't go into it as if you are the receiver. You are the one who's directing the conversation. So they can say anything, and then you just bring it right back around to what's positive that you want them to focus on instead.